If you enjoyed Snipperclips, you're going to love this game. Death Squared is a new co-op puzzle game for Nintendo Switch this week, very much like Snipperclips where it's better with friends, but you can also play alone if you want. The game is available on Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, PS4, and PC for $15. A slight note though, they're actually updating the price right now for all the non-Nintendo platforms, so if you see it for $20, it should be updated to $15 at least pretty soon. Death Squared is broken down into 3 game modes consisting of Story, Party, and Vault, all of which pack quite a challenge with lots of yelling, laughs, and frustration in a good way. Jumping into the first game mode, called Story, we get a passive story told in the form of dialogue happening during the puzzles. You hear an employee of a science lab named David and a GLaDOS-like AI named Iris judging the player as they solve puzzles. Occasionally you'll hear some tidbits about the world outside of these puzzles, specifically the shenanigans going on in the science lab. It's all done in a very humorous tone, and it definitely gives off vibes of Portal, both aesthetically, just the way the game looks, as well as the tone of the dialogues in the story. As the player, you control these robotic cubes on a 3D plane as you try to move the right colored robot over the right colored button. It's simple in premise, but the puzzles are definitely driven by trial and error and learning to laugh at your own mistakes. One half of the controller controls one cube while the other half controls the other. Varying on the puzzle you're playing, certain elements of the level will react to the simple movement of a cube, may it be activating a laser, moving a platform, or turning on spikes on the ground. You'll slowly have to poke around with each of the cubes to see what they react to in terms of the level design and what the correct path is in the level, specifically also the steps in the right order as well. It's without a doubt that you'll die plenty of times in this game, sometimes literally on your first move. While some may consider it frustrating though, it really felt like part of this game's charm, once again giving off those vibes of Portal. As for the difficulty of these puzzles, they can get challenging at times, but they don't so much follow the usual progression of adding a new puzzle element that acts sort of like a chapter or a theme for a few sections of levels. Levels in the story mode instead just change up the layouts and use already established elements in more interesting and complex ways. With that said, I think that even the brightest puzzle veterans will enjoy the 80 levels that the story mode has to offer. I definitely found myself laughing and swearing at all the puzzles this game had to offer. For the party mode, the number of cubes gets bumped up to 4, which is more complex and more co-op focused puzzles. Here you can play with up to 4 players, and if you're playing on the Nintendo Switch, this is a title that supports single Joy-Con support, so right off the bat you already have 2-player support just by owning the system. If you're lacking 4 players, one person can control more than one cube. In fact, one person can play the entire game mode and control all 4 cubes at once. Controls map one cube to each analog stick and the last 2 cubes to an analog stick with the press of a shoulder button. If you really want a challenge, you can completely play the 40 party levels alone. It's a bit more challenging when having to control all 4 cubes at once and memorizing which control scheme controls which cube as you carve through the correct path to take in each level. The one thing I did notice with party mode, since it's more focused on co-op, if you are playing alone or with friends, you really have to coordinate with finding out which cube goes where in which order. Usually the most straightforward path isn't the correct one, so you have to see how the level reacts to certain movements of the cubes and see which order you actually have to take in terms of movements for each of the cubes. The last game mode is Vault mode, which features incredibly challenging puzzles with more moving platforms and generally more complex puzzle elements that will make even the most knowledgeable puzzle players scratch their heads. I personally thought that the party mode can get pretty complex, just having to coordinate all 4 cubes in a single level, and then having to jump into Vault mode, it became much more challenging and extremely just frustrating at times. The Vault mode features a total of 30 levels, wrapping up the complete count of puzzles in this game to 150, so I guess that's $1 for every 10 levels in this game. In terms of the visuals and music in this game, they're just okay. They're nothing really special, but they're not terrible, I guess. I mean, I didn't expect much in terms of the visuals in a puzzle game like this, though I do want to note that the Switch version does seem like it's running at a lower resolution than the other consoles when in docked mode. The shadow resolutions at least look lower res on the Switch specifically. As for the music, it's mostly ambient noise with nothing really notable about it. When playing in handheld mode, the game scales up pretty well on the Switch's display. I was a bit worried at first that the cubes or the 3D planes would look too small on the Switch's screen, but after playing in handheld mode for about an hour and a half, it felt pretty fine to me. I never had a moment where I fell out of the puzzle because of the small display obstructing my view or something. If anything, Death Squared is a game that should really be played in tabletop mode with friends, whether you're just traveling on a train or at a social gathering. It's perfect for that scenario. Overall, Death Squared gets a recommendation from me. I think it's a very fun co-op and also single-player puzzle game that sort of is like a combination of Snipperclips co-op with a Portal theme to it. I really dig it. It's great for multiplayer if you're playing with friends or co-op, but it's also still enjoyable if you're playing it by yourself, if you just want a challenge or you don't have friends, I guess. Regardless, I think for the $15 price tag, you're definitely getting your money's worth, if not more, for basically $15 for 150 puzzles. But that's my review of Death Squared for the PS4, Xbox One, PC, and Nintendo Switch. If I missed your question during the review, feel free to ask it in the comment section down below, and I'll do my best to answer your question. As always, thank you all very much for watching, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one.